Hi, boys and girls. This is Mrs. Webb, your third grade teacher, and this is lesson 1, which is an introduction to personal narratives. Personal narratives are stories about ourselves, and they're real life stories that are about a situation or something that happened to you. This will give us a good foundation of the elements that are required to have a strong personal narrative. Personal narratives establish a situation. That's the setting. You have to think, where is my story going to take place? Maybe you had something that happened to you at a playground, or perhaps something at a restaurant or a shop. Or maybe you want us to tell us a story or your personal narrative about a time that you were at the beach, in the sand or in the water. But it's very important to establish a situation and tell your reader where your personal narrative took place. They also introduce a narrator, which is yourself. You want to use I and me throughout your writing. You also want to introduce the other people that are in your story. Was your sister part of your personal narrative? Or maybe your brother or cousin was in your story or situation? Or maybe you were writing about a time that you saw a doctor or a dentist. It's very important to introduce yourself and the characters. Now, in a personal narrative, you also want to make sure that you organize the event so it has a natural flow and it makes sense. We do that often through our flow maps in class. And you also want to make sure that you're using dialogue. You want to make sure your characters are talking and showing us their actions and feelings will make your writing much more interesting. This will help to show the events and responses and make your story come to life. In a personal narrative, you want to use words and phrases to signal event order. Now, in second grade, we used words like first, then, next, and last. But in third grade, I'm going to expect a little bit more of you. This is a great poster that we'll hang in our classroom. It talks about some transitions that you might want to choose from. And it's not limited to this, but these are some great ideas. Perhaps you want to start with at the beginning. Later you might say meanwhile, and then finally in conclusion. All of these transitions are excellent ways to keep our story moving through and organized so that the reader really understands what happened. In a personal narrative, you need to provide a sense of closure. And we talk a lot about how our writing is kind of like a sandwich. You have your top piece of bread and your bottom piece of bread, and in between it is everything that happened in your story. The bottom piece of bread is your closure. If you don't have that in your sandwich, it's going to fall apart. And your piece of bread on the bottom is more than just the end. It's something that's going to show how you felt about your situation. And maybe it might even include a wish or a hope for what might happen next in your personal narrative. This will keep your reader understanding your story and bringing it all together for clarity. So now let's look at what you're going to do with this video. It's your turn to create an idea bank. And an idea bank is similar to a brainstorm, or maybe we've used a circle map before to help us. This is what you're going to get to do. On a piece of paper, create a list, a circle map, some words of what you want to write about. Think of all the stories and things that have happened to you that you'd want to share with us. Maybe you want to think of an important event or an adventure in your life. Perhaps you went on an amazing trip to Vietnam. Or maybe you visited your grandma and grandpa in Mexico and you'd like to share that. You might want to think about something you learned to do. Wonderful personal narratives I've read in the past are when someone learned to ride a bike, or maybe when someone learned to tie their shoe. It can also be a story about an important person. Perhaps it was your teacher on your first day of kindergarten, or maybe you want to write about a doctor that helped you, or someone else in your life that's very important to you. And the last could be an obstacle or a problem that you have solved. Perhaps it was something where you didn't know how to do something and then you learned and persevered and now you're a better person for it. What I'd like you to do is write some ideas down and circle your number one choice. Bring that paper back with us when we're ready to start our writing time, and be ready to share with your classmates your one idea. We'll post these up and we'll get ready to write our flash draft and our next step in writing our personal narratives. I look forward to working with all of you, and I think you're going to have a wonderful time with this.